Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about how far to break down your goals, or how small to make those breakdown action steps, because I talk a lot about breaking down your goals, and I still 100% will always say that you will not achieve your goals if you do not break them down. That is a requirement for goal success, is breaking down your goals. And I have a ton of videos on how to break down your goals. And if that's a topic that you're still struggling with, start with this video right here on how to break down your goals. And that will lead you to some other videos, and hopefully that will help you figure out the how. Today, we're gonna talk a little bit more specifically about how much. And this came as a request from one of you. Last year, I put out a call for content requests, and somebody submitted the question, how do I know how to break it down to the right intermediate step? And that is a great question, because there's no right answer. It really is going to depend on you and your life. And so in this video, I'm gonna give you 3 tips or things to keep in mind as you're breaking down your goals, and how to know when you're done breaking them down. Tip number 1 is that smaller is always better. I would always encourage you to err on the side of smaller. If you look at it and you're like, that still feels a little bit overwhelming, break it down even more. If you look at it and your brain immediately thinks of a way you can break it down even more, break it down even more. For most of us, it is going to be better for us to underestimate what we can get done rather than overestimate. I would rather you come into the situation where you break it down into really small steps, and then you schedule time, which is another key to goal setting, actually putting the steps in your calendar. You schedule time for that one small step in your calendar, and you finish it in way less time than you think it's going to take, and then you can work on the next step. But because you have it broken down, you already know what that next step is. I would so much rather that happen than for you to break it down, think you've broken it down enough, and then put that step in your calendar, realize it's taking you longer than you thought it would. That's gonna lead to frustration, and it's gonna kill your momentum, and it is going to just be more difficult to handle than if the step were smaller to begin with. For example, let's say we're talking about decluttering. That's a really common goal that everyone has this time of year, myself included. We are also moving, so that helps with my decluttering bug. But if you're one of those people right now where you're like, I just wanna clean every area of my house and I want it to feel like a whole new house. So you go to break down your decluttering goal, right? And you start with the obvious, like you break it down by room. And then within your room, let's say we're talking about my office right here, I would list the closet, I would list the shelves, I would list my desk, I would list the dresser, and then I would break it down even more. So sticking with the dresser, I would break it down by each individual drawer. And this drawer that's kind of open right here, let's look. So I'm gonna get distracted by that. So you broke it down by drawer. So you've got 8 little check boxes for all of the drawers. Now let's say I've scheduled time to declutter. It's time to start. I put 15 minutes in my calendar today to declutter. I decide I'm gonna start here in the office, and I decide I'm gonna start with the dresser. So I start with the first drawer. Well, the first drawer is t-shirts, and that one might take me a whole 15 minutes to declutter, because I need to really consider, do I need to keep this as like a memorabilia t-shirt? Does this t-shirt actually, do I wear it? Like, is it comfortable? You have those t-shirts in your drawers too that you just like never wear because they're not comfortable, but you like don't want to get rid of them. So that 15-minute session took me one drawer. I am so glad that I broke down my declutter plan by drawer. Now let's say the next day I schedule another 15 minutes to declutter, back here in the office, back at the dresser, and now I'm on drawer number 2, and I get through all 3 of those next drawers in 15 minutes, because it's stuff that's really quick. Workout clothes that I'm pretty good at throwing away when they don't work anymore, socks that are pretty easy to go through, and let's say I get through all 3. Well, I can just check off all 3. I really don't know how long things are going to take, and so I would rather err on the side of smaller, breaking it down as literally as small as possible. So if you are somebody who has struggled in the past with estimating how long things are going to take when it comes to scheduling time for your goals, I would encourage you to break those goals down into as small of steps as you can possibly think of. The next tip when it comes to knowing how small to break down the steps for your goals is based on your personal calendar. All of our lives are different. We all have different schedules, jobs, families, needs, cities we live in, right? There are so many variables into your individual life. So if you're somebody who can only find 15-minute pockets on your calendar to work on your goals, then you need to know that you're breaking your goals down into 15-minute chunks. And again, if you're somebody who feels like you struggle to estimate how long things are going to take, always err on the side of smaller is better. Now, for me personally, when it comes to business-related goals and tasks, I always break it down into 30-minute chunks. That's what I like to schedule in my calendar, and that's what typically works for me. Again, I am always very much overestimating how long those things are going to take. If my gut tells me that a task is going to take one 30-minute chunk, I will give it 2. And then for personal goals, I pretty much always just break it down into an hour. That is, in my schedule, I can find an hour chunk to work on my personal goals. Now, this could also vary whether you're breaking things down to a weekly level or a daily level, depending on how often you are going to work on that goal. So for example, let's say 2 people both set out to read 50 books in a year. The level 1 of breaking that down, right, is 1 book a week, approximately on average. The next level of breaking that down is time. How long is it going to take me to read 1 book per week? Well, based on average words per minute and average book length, it's about 3 hours a week. Now, if you're reading shorter or longer books, or you're a faster or slower reader, 3 hours a week might not feel right for 1 book. But based on averages, based on Google's averages, it's gonna take about 3 hours a week for you to get through 1 book. So if you're breaking that down on a weekly basis, well, that's 3 hours. How do you want to break that up? Do you just want to say, I want to read 3 hours over the course of the week? Maybe you're only reading books on the weekends. So it's an hour and a half on Saturday or an hour and a half on Sunday. Or maybe you're actually just spending all day Sunday reading and you're setting a goal to read 3 hours every single Sunday. On the flip side, if you're basing it on a daily reading goal, let's say you're trying to read every single day, then that equates to about 25 minutes a day, and that needs to be your goal. See how the breakdown varies based on whether you're doing it daily or weekly or even some different amount. So depending on when you're scheduling it, what your schedule looks like, how much time you typically have to work on goals based on all of your other commitments, that is how small you need to break down the steps. And then tip number 3 related to this topic is that the breakdown doesn't always have to look consistent. And the reading examples that I just gave, right, I gave you the example is if you were gonna break it down evenly by day or by week or by month. That might not be the case for you. I always give this example based on the same reading goal. Let's say a teacher is setting out to read 50 books a year. While reading 1 book a week sounds really great, during the school year, that might be really difficult for them with all the other things that they have going on with work, and then being tired when they get home from work, and then having a personal life and doing other things, maybe taking care of their own kids. 3 hours a week may not be possible. So maybe if a teacher is breaking down this goal, this reading 50 book goal, they're breaking it down to look like 1 to 2 books a month during the school year, and then 10 to 15 books a month during the summer. And this is so much easier to do with numerical goals, right? You've seen me do this with step goals as well. I would love to say that my goal is to walk 7,000 steps every day, but if I put that down, that would be really tough for me to hit every single day. So it's more motivating to me for me to break it down to say I want to walk 50,000 steps over the course of the week, which equates to about 7,000 steps a day, but then I can adjust my daily goal based on what else I have going on that day and still hit the overall weekly goal. But this doesn't just apply to numerical goals. I have project-based work goals that are not broken down evenly throughout the entire year. There are lots of goals where I'm doing 1 or 2 tiny steps this quarter to start to make progress on that goal. And then the big chunk of the work is happening either Q2 or Q3 later on in the year. If I took all of my work goals and evenly broke them up throughout the entire year, I would not accomplish anything until the end of the year, and maybe not even then because I was too busy focusing on so many things. So what I try to do is in Q1, I have 1 big project that I'm really focused on that's taking up the majority of my focus, and then I have 2 or 3 little things that I'm working on behind the scenes. But the key here is that I'm breaking it down in different amounts based on my overarching goal and how much time I have to work on it. So don't feel like you have to be working on the same amount for every single one of your goals at the same time. The amount that you break it down can vary based on what is your priority for that month or that quarter. I'm sorry about the lighting in this video. The sun is like in and out, and I really do need to start checking the weather and make sure I don't film on partly cloudy days. The reality here is there are so many ways to break down a goal, and there are so many amounts of breakdown that you could do based on your life and your needs and your individual schedule. And this is one of the reasons why I find one-on-one coaching so beneficial for so many people, is because they have been trying to break down that goal based on somebody else's life or somebody else's schedule, and then we work together one-on-one and figure out how they can break it down in a way that really works for them. For example, I have worked with 2 different people on the exact same goal. Both of them were studying for a specific work certification exam, not the same one, but a certification exam in their field that they were working on. One of the people I worked with was a mom. She had 2 kids under 2. She did have help based on her husband's work schedule and her mom's availability, but it looked different every single week. So she could not just break down that goal and say, okay, I'm gonna study for this exam 7 hours a week every week leading up to the exam, because that's not what it looked like. So what she did instead was she sat down every single week, and we did this together while we were working on it, and she picked, okay, based on my schedule, my husband's schedule, my mom, this week I can study this many hours, and that was going to be her goal for the week. Then the other piece of the breakdown that worked for her was breaking it down into 15-minute increments. So let's say for the week she set a goal to study for 4 hours. She would then break that down into 16, yes, I know it feels like a lot, but hear me out, 16 little 15-minute increments. That way, if she found 15 minutes here or 15 minutes there around what she was doing with her kids and with work and all of the things, she was able to squeeze in a little bit of studying. But by picking an hour goal each week and breaking it down into 15 minutes, that worked so much better for her than saying, I'm gonna work on this specific section this week. Because what if something popped up and she didn't get to that entire section? Or what if that section was really easy and she flew right through it and it didn't take her, and then she had extra time that she could have been studying? It was so much better for her to schedule in time increments than chapter increments. The other person I worked with on this exact same goal, she was not a mom. She was a morning person who volunteered a lot on the weekends and had other commitments. So she really wanted to get as much of her studying done during the week as possible. So we also figured out a time goal for her, but hers was a little bit more steady. She ultimately figured out that in her schedule, she could set aside 1 hour in the mornings before work and a half hour at lunch during the day. And that was what worked for her. And she didn't do it every single day, but her goal was to do that 4 out of 5 days of the week. She also did a little bit of number crunching and figured out that if she did it that way, she could get through one chapter, one section of the study material every single week. So ultimately, that was her goal. So if there was a week that it went a little bit faster, she didn't have to study on Thursday and Friday that week. She didn't push it. And she felt confident saying, I'm gonna do 1 chapter a week, because she knew that she had that time scheduled that was gonna be more than enough time. And that is what worked for her. So 2 very different life examples of breaking down the same goal. So there is no one right way to break down a goal in terms of how far and how deep you break it down. It really is going to depend on your individual schedule, what other priorities you have going on, what other goals you have going on. But at the end of the day, if you're really struggling and you're like, that, it all still feels a little bit too complicated, break it down as small as possible. You are likely going to be more successful with a smaller breakdown than anything bigger. But this, again, is just one really good example of why one-on-one coaching is so successful, because we can really look together at your life and your goal and figure out the best breakdown and setup for you. So if you have a goal that you've started this year that you're feeling like you've got a little bit of a slower start, or you need some extra help figuring out that breakdown, send me a message on Instagram with what that goal is, and let's talk about if one-on-one coaching is a good fit for you. All right, that is gonna be it for this video. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. It's a long time since I sat down and filmed, and it's awkward. Okay, which at that point, I feel like I might as well just manually adjust it, right? Now it's really dark. Hello, welcome to my channel. So it's more motivating me for